Hi, I'm Peter from Coffee Parts, and today we're looking at the Baratza 270 and 270 WI. So the Baratza 270, this is a big brother in the Sette range to the 30. So it is a step grinder, and the name 270 comes from the 270 steps. 30 macro, 9 micro, making it 30 times 9 being 270. But first things first, let's dive in and grind out some coffee. On the 270, it's grind by time. We've got 3 different time settings, but we're gonna go with 6.75 seconds, which on this grind adjustment should give us about 20 grams of coffee. Locking in the portafilter, it is a hands-free operation, and hitting play. As it is a vertical grind, it goes through, grinds, and comes out in a vertical path compared to other grinders that have a different chute. It is a very clean grind, and if you look, very even distributed, no clumping, very fluffy, and very little mess. Now on the 270 WI, the same approach, but instead of using a time factor, we're using a weight. In this case, we're gonna match what we did here, which will be about 20 grams. We've set this up as 20 grams. One thing to note though, the bench has to be stable. If you do have vibrations through your bench, or to say live on the main road and you do get vibrations from that traffic coming through, it does take a little bit longer to register the portafilter. In that case, you might want the 270 and the scale. But putting in the portafilter here, when you lock it in, it holds it in. When you hit play on the 20 grams, it is gonna think, and then we'll grind out. Let's see. In this case, because we are in a studio with a very controlled environment, it did register and do it almost instantly. But sometimes there is times at a home that's windy, big open windows, it could take a little longer to register. Once again, equivalent grinds, very little mess, very fluffy, no clumping, very evenly distributed, really beautiful grinds. And because these collars do come out really easily, very easy grinders to clean. And that's the grind operation. But now let's dive in and look at each grinder in a little bit more detail and see what makes this grinder what it is. So both these grinders, like you saw in me grinding out, are the same grinder. The difference is how they operate. The 270 grinds out based on time, and you've got 3 different time parameters that you can preset, and you can either grind on those time parameters or start and stop a grind. With the 270 WI, it grinds based on weight. Once again, 3 weight parameters. So you could set up 20 grams, 25, and call it 30 grams. And it grinds out based on weight, and it uses an Akai load cell. Now the I after the W stands for intelligent. The early version of these was the 270W, and it ground by weight. But what happened was, as you adjusted the grinds to say ground finer, there will be a little bit of a variance in when it grinds, and it will over or undershoot. What it does now is still over or undershoots, but it learns, and the next grind it adjusts itself a lot quicker. Now, looking at the burrs of these grinders, they're the same S1 burr, which is a 40mm steel conical blade made by Etzinger, and Etzinger are specialists in conical burrs. They come with the S1 conical burr, but it can be easily changed out within under a minute without any tools to the S2 cone, and that just changes your grind profile. To change the grinder cone from an S1 to an S2, all you have to do is move the portafilter support to the side, move it all the way to coarser, and the whole unit comes out, and it's easily changed. Taking it out, not only can you change the cone really easily, but it allows for cleaning really easy. The hopper does come out just by turning and lifting, and you can clean that chute without any tools super easily. Just locking it back in, once again turning it, you got the open and close. Going back to here, this is an aluminium collar, and you can see the micro adjustments there. In the AP30, the baby version of these, there was a plastic collar. So this is a lot nicer with all these adjustments, not only having the 30 macro, but the 9 micro, you can really dial in for espresso. And if you are using a better espresso coffee machine, say something with a heat exchange or dual boiler, you really want that extra adjustability. Locking it back in, you just align the blue marker with the blue marker, pop it in, give it a turn, and you're back. Because it is stepped and not stepless, you can go back to the exact same position that you were without any difficulty. So you can pull it apart, give it a really quick clean, and get it back together without having to dial in your grind again. One unique thing about Baratza, because it is based on the Etzinger, it's actually the external and not the internal of the burrs that moves. So when you do pull this apart, not only is it easier for cleaning, you do get a really clean grind because you're going straight through from the hopper directly to the portafilter. As you saw in me grinding earlier, makes very little mess. It's a very fast grinder and it's very consistent in its grind. It is, however, a little bit noisy, but we've addressed that. You can't have it all. When it comes to the portafilter support, it does hold in the portafilter by itself, and you can easily adjust that to fit any portafilter. If you want to not say use a portafilter, but use a different vessel, call it something like a V60 for filter coffee, you can easily move that to the side, push those prongs in, turn it, and now you can put either a V60 or the container it comes with if you want to grind out coffee, but predominantly filter or AeroPress or whatever it might be. Moving it back in, bring it back down and bring your portafilter support out, you're ready to go. Now, on this grinder, like you saw, it is time. On this one, it is weight. A lot of people ask, which way should I go? Realistically, you could buy a time grinder and a small scale, and that scale will be quite versatile to use for other things, weighing in, weighing out, or even for cupping. With this scale here, because it's built into the grinder, it does take a little bit longer to register the portafilter. This is a quicker grinder, and it is a very consistent grind, so you don't get that much variation. It is nice to grind by weight, but in many cases I do feel grinding based on time on these units and having a separate scale probably is the better way to go. But it really depends on what you want, and obviously having it all built in means one less thing on the bench. And when it comes to the motors of these grinders, they actually went for a DC motor, so you got that startup torque and it keeps the beans a lot cooler. So for its price and its package, they really are awesome. Compared to other grinders of its price point, they're a bit louder and the body's obviously plastic, but the clean grind that you're getting, the low retention and the speed of the grinder does compensate for the noise and plastic body. We've also done another video on the baby version of these, the Sette 30, as well as a video comparing the range, showing all the Baratzas in one line. But I'd like to know your thoughts. Which of these two grinders would you go for? By time or by weight? Which do you prefer? And does the noise annoy you? Do you like the fact that it's a really clean, low retention grinder, but a bit noisier? Or would you rather a quieter grinder to say makes a little bit more mess? Let me know in the comments below. And like always, if this video has brought you value, hit that thumbs up. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe. Thank you and see you in the next video.